A few months ago, a friend of mine, who is a nature photographer, decided to spend a day and night alone in the woods outside of our town. She wanted to get photos of the woods and wildlife as naturally as she could for her portfolio. She wasn't afraid of being alone, as she had camped by herself many times before. She set up a tent in the middle of a small clearing and spent the day taking pictures. She filled up 4 rolls of film on that trip, but when she went and got them developed, she saw 4 pictures that unsettled her. These 4 pictures were taken from inside the tent, of her, asleep in the middle of the night. One school day, a boy named Tom was sitting in class and doing math. It was 6 more minutes until after school. As he was doing his homework, something caught his eye. His desk was next to the window, and he turned and looked at the grass outside. It looked like a picture. When school was over, he ran to the spot where he saw it. He ran fast so that no one else could grab it. He picked it up and smiled. It had a picture of the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. She had a dress with tights on and red shoes, and her hand was formed into a peace sign. She was so beautiful he wanted to meet her, so he ran all over the school and asked everyone if they knew her or have ever seen her before. But everyone he asked said no. He was devastated. When he was home, he asked his older sister if she knew the girl, but unfortunately, she also said no. It was very late, so Tom walked up the stairs, placed the picture on his bedside table, and went to sleep. In the middle of the night, Tom was awakened by a tap on his window. It was like a nail tapping. He got scared. After the tapping, he heard a giggle. He saw a shadow near his window, so he got out of his bed, walked toward his window, opened it up, and followed the giggling. By the time he reached it, it was gone. The next day, again, he asked his neighbors if they knew her. Everybody said, sorry, no. When his mother came home, he even asked her if she knew her. She said no. He went to his room, placed the picture on his desk, and fell asleep. Once again, he was awakened by a tapping. He took the picture and followed the giggling. He walked across the road, when suddenly, he got hit by a car. He was dead with the picture in his hand. The driver got out of the car and tried to help him, but it was too late. Suddenly, he saw the picture and picked it up. He saw a cute girl holding up 3 fingers. A couple of months ago, my friend's cousin, a single mother, bought a new cell phone. After a long day of work, she came home, placed her phone on the counter, and went to watch TV. Her son came to her and asked if he could play with her new phone. She told him not to call anyone or mess with text messages, and he agreed. At around 11:20, she was drowsy, so she decided to tuck her son in and go to bed. She walked to his room and saw that he wasn't there. She then ran over to her room to find him sleeping on her bed with the phone in his hand. Relieved, she picked her phone back up from his hand to inspect it. Browsing through it, she noticed only minor changes, such as a new background, banner, etc. But then she opened up her saved pictures. She began deleting the pictures he had taken, until only one new picture remained. When she first saw it, she was in disbelief. It was her son sleeping on her bed, but the picture was taken by someone else above him, and it showed the left half of an elderly woman's face. I checked my phone. Attachment. One image. That's weird. I haven't given my number out. The only number of my contacts is my mother's. I opened my phone, but the number is anonymous. Not my mother. Who would send a picture? I closed my phone. 5 minutes later. I checked my phone again. Attachment. One image. Maybe I should tell them they have a wrong number. A thud came from the window. What could it be? I look. Nothing there. Attachment. One image. I opened the message. 3 pictures. Of me. They were taken in my room. From inside the closet. I had recently moved into a new house, by the name of I will not mention. It was on the second day that I discovered the photo album. I'm not really sure how it got there, as I remember leaving it at my old place. It was my aunt's old photo album. She had died around a decade ago. We hadn't been close, so I was surprised that she had even left me this in her will. I thumbed through the first few pages. All the photos appeared normal. There were a few of me on a slide at a playground, one of my aunt and my mother as children, and so on. It was not until a few nights later that I looked through the album again. I had just begun drinking my morning coffee when I began to browse it again, this time with more interest. That was when I noticed her. In the first photo, she was far away, almost too far away to see, but I swear she hadn't been there the last time I looked. She was only in the photos of me. As I got to the photos that were taken when I was older, she was closer. She had the same face with the same expression and body posture in each photo. I kept flicking through the pages. I began to get more and more freaked out. When I reached the last photo, she was only a few feet behind me. She seemed to be staring right at me. I suddenly knew what to do. I leaped up and rushed into my room. My camera was lying on my desktop table. I hadn't used it in years. I quickly took a photo of myself and printed it. That's when I saw who she was. It was my aunt, and she was right behind me. For those of you who don't know, the era of the 1980s wasn't the best time for a kid to grow up in America. Back then, there was a so-called satanic panic going on. Kids were going missing left and right, and everyone was convinced that the cults were to blame. This blame it on Satanist attitude was especially apparent where I grew up, in South Carolina. Around there, blaming non-Christians for problems was as much as part of the culture as guns, sweet tea, and going to church on Sundays. I grew up in a small town in the Sunshine State, but the state soon proved to grow cloudier and cloudier around me as time went on. Things began to go downhill for me when I was 12 years old. I grew up in a little, one-story house with my parents and my 8-year-old brother, Danny. It's safe to say that Danny could be pretty annoying sometimes. In fact, looking back, I'd say he was on my nerves more than he was off. Still, I loved the kid, deep down. Once in a while, he and I got along, and the moments that we did see eye to eye, well, they were truly memorable. Our times together ceased on April 13th, 1984. That day seems like a dream to me now, a distant memory. Danny and I had just gone home from school. Our father was still at work, and my mother was gone too, leaving a note on the fridge for us. Went to Jen's. Please run to supermarket and pick up eggs so I can make your cake. The following day was my birthday. I had almost forgotten. Well, I told Danny to stay put while I ran to the store, but the little bugger informed me that he was coming along. Of course, I argued with him. I did not need him coming with me to the store. He'd been annoying me the entire walk home from school. As I argued with him, I knew in the back of my head that I had to take him. Come on. The kid was 8 years old. I couldn't leave him home alone. My parents would kill me for that. I finally gave in, told him to shut his mouth and keep it shut, and set out the door with him. Of course, the little annoyance bugged me the entire way. By the time we got to the supermarket, I was about ready to clobber him. All I did, however, was pull him to the side and scold him for about a minute. Looking back on it now, I wish I hadn't. I wish I just embraced his annoyingness. Well, I turned away from the brat and made a beeline through the store, toward the poultry aisle. Always having trouble finding things in the supermarket, I was overjoyed I was able to find the eggs. I found the aisle, opened the cold fridge door, and grabbed the eggs. All that was left to do was check out and find Danny. I couldn't believe it. I hadn't even kept track of my little brother after I had scolded him. I frantically searched the store, and after not being able to find him for several minutes, I began to ask customers if they had seen a short, blonde-headed boy. No one had a clue. I even resorted to getting customer service to call for him, but my little brother didn't come. The worst part was going home and telling my parents. I felt terrible. The next day was the worst birthday ever. As you can imagine, I still hate my birthday for this reason. For weeks, the police searched for him. My parents frantically combed the entire town, always stopping to post missing person signs all over the place. I couldn't even think of what could have happened. I was scolded by my parents every night for it. My dad quickly slipped into depression, taking to alcohol as a means of escape. After a month, the search was called off. No one had any idea of where Danny was. He had disappeared without any trace. A couple of weeks after the search was called off, the police called in my parents, showing them a photograph they had found in the parking lot of an abandoned store. The case remains open to this day.